All right, all right. We are back in Belmar. It is coming into the nice weather season, so I thought it was time to have Mike on our podcast, who runs a detailing service. So, Mike, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing good. You know, it's our busy season, so just as a business owner, trying to keep my head on straight.
Thanks for sneaking away today to chat with us. So, how long have you been doing this?
This will be our 5th year in business now.
5th year in business, detailing boats primarily.
Primarily boats. We do some cars, but boats are always where my passion's been.
What got you into this 5 years ago?
So I mean, I think it even kind of goes back before that.
Sure.
You know, one of the things I always say is, you know, growing up, I never really had a babysitter. You know, my parents had car washes.
Locally?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, cool.
It used to be called Squeaky Clean. It used to be on Fisher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um,
Fisher Boulevard in Toms River, for all the local listeners.
So I got to see that, and they really built like a family community with their employees. So I was always there, and you know, I was always around cars. Then I would detail my own car, and then
You're one of those guys.
Yeah, I was one of those guys. Then
You're
it would
probably back into.
Yep.
Are you one of those guys that backs into?
Yeah, no, not with the truck. Not with the truck.
Right.
I can't drive the truck to save my life. With the Jeep though, yeah. But then from there, you know, I would start detailing some friends' cars, and then it was the first initial name of it was Clean and Squeaky. And I have a text from 2017. I texted to my friend, and it was like, I'm gonna start my own detailing business and eventually build this great shop. And, you know, it took a little while because I had to do a couple of things.
Because building a business is hard.
Building a business is very hard, very hard. And there's, you know, I went to school for business.
Where'd you go to school?
Montclair State.
Oh, cool.
And I definitely think I learned some things, like looking back now during it, I was like, what, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But now, like with certain things, I learned stuff. And from there, it was just like, okay, like, you know, it was a side hustle for a while, and then I was working a job in the city. COVID happened. We got sent home from COVID, and I started doing it a little bit more because I had more time on my hands. From there, and then it just became a full-fledged business.
That's great. So
Yeah.
5 years ago, you get sent home. You're working. You were
Yep.
commuting every day from Toms River in.
Yep.
Wow, that's a hustle too.
Yeah.
So you're commuting in and out. You have no free time. Really.
No, I would get home at sometimes 11 o'clock, and I would have to be up by 4 a.m.
And you're 2 hours in, 2 hours
Yeah,
home, plus
yeah.
an 8-hour day. But
Yeah.
at least, right?
Yeah.
So now you go home. You have some more free time on your
Yep.
hands.
Yep.
So now you start getting into this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wow, I really like this.
Yeah.
So 5 seasons in, what have we learned?
I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs. You know, I think our first season, I was very gung ho, and I wanted to scale very fast. You know,
Okay.
I'm a very ambitious person. Like when I do something, it's full
You're going all
throttle.
in.
Yeah.
So what happened though?
So we got a couple of marina contracts, and like I said, we scaled too fast, and it wasn't. You know, I think at the time I blamed some of the guys that were working for me, but at the end of the day, like now I look back and it was like, it was my fault. You know, I didn't train them properly. I didn't spend the time to go and walk through each boat because we were getting so much business. I just didn't have the time.
So you were just getting all these requests,
Yeah.
incoming leads,
Yeah.
and you're like, just go
Yeah.
do this, go do this.
Yeah, and it would be we would get a mistake here, and then I would have to go back and fix it, and then we actually lost contracts because you know,
Because they didn't feel
yeah,
they were doing the right
they
thing.
weren't satisfied, and it justifiably, you know, like I didn't have the right systems in place because I couldn't be at every single job. And from there, it was like our second season, we scaled back a little bit. Third season, we started offering some new services, ceramic coating, wash programs, boats. Fourth season, I think, is really where we started to kind of solidify our process. And then this season I'm the most excited for.
So you're the most excited for it. Now, how many guys are working for you during the season?
So I have one main guy that works for me, and we usually pick up 1 or 2 like part-time guys.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And now what's the process? You work with the marinas, you work with the end users. Who's the one calling you for the service?
So usually we have a couple of marina contracts where they call us, but most of it is our regular clients and just our clients. You know, whether they find us on Instagram or some of the powerboat clubs. You know, we do a lot of high-end powerboats, high-end vehicles, high-end luxury stuff.
Sure.
The biggest thing is, and this is the one thing I've also realized, is just if you do a really good job, word of mouth is the least expensive marketing thing that you could do.
Absolutely.
You know, and some of the most clients, like looking back, it's usually when we do a good job and we have clients advocating on our behalf.
Yep.
And it's a great feeling to have when
It's
that
great
happens.
on those social media, on those Facebook groups, and it says, who do you know that does this? And you see a name
Yep.
come up. And then when you see a name come up multiple times, you're like, all right, we've done the right thing in the community.
Yeah, and I get probably one every day, and it's usually like one like the handful of the same amount of clients, but just still like they take that time to think like about us. Like that means a lot.
It's nice when they put @, in your name, and you're like, that's cool. Because again, they didn't have to.
Yeah.
They're scrolling Facebook because they just want to get away from
Yep.
life for a minute. They're not. It doesn't mean that they have to put our names in there.
No, they don't have to do anything. It's just like their immediate thought is us. And you know, I posted a quote the other day. It was like, when your name is associated with a solution, that means you're on the right track.
That's great. That's powerful. That's
Yeah.
great. So now you have some inspiration and some, about how you got into this. So how did you kind of so you said you grew up in the car wash, but I think it's more than that from what I have gathered and what I've heard you talk about now. So kind of go into what gives you that energy to go out and be great every day.
Yeah, I get goosebumps, and if I get worked up, I apologize. But so my dad all my life pretty much was like my role model. You know, he was always the hardest worker. You know, he was always hustling. He did a lot of things right in his life. He did a couple of things wrong, but he was the one that all my life I wanted to work for his business, and he wanted me to go to school.
So he wanted you to get an education.
He wanted me to get
You
an
wanted to be in the car wash.
I wanted to be a business owner. I'm like, I don't need an education. You know, at the end of the day, I'm glad I did, because I met some of my closest friends there.
And they can't take that away from you.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And as time went on, I'm at school, I'm bouncing around from job to job. He's still doing a couple of things. And then, as I'm graduating, he started to get sick. And he was always somebody who was an ox, and ran 5 miles, lifted 5 miles, made sure I knew it all the time. When I was young, I would sit at the table in a guinea tea, and he would take his shirt off just to show yo, you're not bigger than me. And it was we always had that relationship. I was with him at pretty much every car wash. He had car washes in Hazlitt. And so I was always with him all the time, and he started to get sick, and I didn't think anything of it. And I think I don't have a lot of regrets in my life, but I think that is one of the biggest things that I wish I took it a little bit more seriously.
Did he know how serious it was?
I think he did, but he never let me know.
He never let it on.
And that's, I think my whole entire life, no matter what he was going through, whether it's business, anything, he never let me know as a kid, as a teen, anything. And him and my mom. So I owe them that, because whatever they went through, it never came on us. Mm-hmm. And even when he was sick, you never really know. And I remember, at one point he even had to have an oxygen tank, and still you could tell he was, from my perspective, is he's struggling a little bit, but he's still he wouldn't show it.
Yep.
So and
you have a visualization of this ox.
Yeah,
this guy
I'm like he's fine. I'm like there's no way. This dude is literally fine. And so it gets worse. He goes back into the hospital, and I remember getting a call one day, and the whole time he's in the hospital, I'm I'm thinking of him, and I'm trying to call him, but at the end of the day, I'm like, he's fine. He's gonna come out. Nothing's gonna happen. There's no way. I wouldn't even say there's no way. The thought didn't even cross my mind. Mm-hmm. And I get a call from my uncle, and he said, we gotta go. We gotta go to Philly. He was in Philly. And I was like, okay, we're going to visit him, no problem. As soon as I walked off the elevator, my whole family was there. And, we were in and out, and, he eventually passed away.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so I think, now for a while I didn't take it easy. I actually drank a lot. I was really going down a bad path.
Yep.
For a little while, and you saw that in everything that I was doing. And I had like a scared straight moment almost. Like I got pulled over in front of my house after having a couple of drinks, and truthfully they made me walk the line, and nothing happened to me.
Sure.
But that was the moment I was like, all right, I'm not drinking anymore. I'll have one or two, but
yeah, but you stopped the heavy partying and drinking.
Yeah, and from there it was like, okay, like not to sound like over arrogant, but I have this undeniable why now. Like, you always hear people say, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And it's like, it's always been him, but it's also my mom too, because he's gone. My mom, I want to be able to provide her a life where she doesn't have to worry. She can, if she wants to come back up here, she has a house. Yep. She can come back up here. And when I'm detailing boats, and that's always been when I'm most connected to him. Like last Father's Day, he used to have an old Mercedes. I don't remember the exact, like the old kind of body style. It was black. And it was the most amazing moment because I'm using a buffer on it, and it's Father's Day, and I just like felt like he was there with me.
Sure.
So I've always said, it was the worst, might have been the worst thing that could have ever happened in my life, but it made me who I am. It made me see things from a completely different perspective, and some of the losses of family members that I've had, the biggest regrets I've always had is I never took it as serious as it was. And I never made the time to stop what I'm doing and go and talk to them or visit them and spend time with them, because you never really know. Now even my mom, I call her every day, at least once a day, just to hear her voice. Even my friends, like I stopped texting pretty much because I call them and, just to hear their voice. So I think it's huge to realize like just how precious time is and how little we have of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's awesome. So now your mom, you said she lives in the Carolinas. Now, is her goal to come back up here? Or is that your goal?
I think eventually. I joke with her all the time that I say if I'm able to buy her a house and hand her keys, how is she going to say no?
What's her answer to that?
And she says, oh, we'll see. So she never really gives me a hard no.
She doesn't say no.
She doesn't give me a hard no. She says, I just really like it down here and it's affordable. I'm like, yeah, but if you didn't have to pay for a house, what would you feel? So I kind of joke with her, but that's always been my goal, to give back to her, because she's been through a lot. She's also done a lot for me. She's shielded me from a lot, when I was really young, when a lot of things were going wrong. So my goal has always been to try to give back to her, to give back to some of my friends that have helped me, my friends that still help me, and everybody like that.
So now, where do you want to see your business go? So if you're in a seasonal business, you're in a business that's 3 months here. What do you do the other 9 months?
So I think one of the parts I left out is, when I first started, after a season or two, I didn't realize it was a seasonal business. I'm like, I'm going to go detail in 30-degree weather. So
not a lot of people that want to do that.
No. And you can't, because the water freezes.
Yeah.
So I had to actually humble myself a little bit, and I went back, used my degree. I got a remote job with some flexibility, and I was doing that for a very long time, just to kind of get me through those seasons.
Yeah, sure.
And now I'm at a point this year where, I started a media business doing content, just another hobby that turned into another thing. The detailing.
You're not trying to take Wingman out of business.
No. Just filming.
All right, good.
No, it became like, it was always a passion of mine, and it became like a passion project. And I like, very like telling other people's stories and helping other people. So my goal hopefully this year is to just pretty much either do that in the off season, but my vision has always been to get a car wash eventually. And I think the step that I want to make this year is get a warehouse where I can do boats inside and really, take it to the next level.
That'd be great.
Boats. Yeah, because I love cars at the end of the day. We'll still do cars, but boats for me has always been something special. And I think to just be able to do some customization, have an indoor facility. So if anybody knows anybody, let me know, because we need some garage height.
That'll be great. And then it expands the season.
Yeah.
And then for the guys that want to put their boat in right away, you're done.
We're done.
So you're done in February.
Yeah.
For them, take your boat and go.
Yeah, and hopefully have like a little bit of storage for even the guys that like want to store it in there, we can just store it and like drop it off and they're ready to go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then how do you see expansion? Because it seems like you're not the kind of guy that likes to stay even. You're the kind of guy who likes to grow.
It's funny. I've the next mountain I want to climb is I want to franchise. I think, you know, that's where these last 4 or 5 years, the mistakes that I've made, you know, I'm the most important thing right now to me is systems and processes. And, you know, I started doing it a little bit with the media business, right from the get, and now the detailing business as well. So I want to franchise, get down in Florida is probably like my next eye. But make sure we're solid up here too first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
that'll be great. And I think that there's a lot of add-ons probably that you can work with. There's a lot of other vendors in the process that you can kind of align with to, one, help get more leads, two, help put other products and services on these boats.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things with me too is like I've always said that the pie is big enough that we can all eat.
Sure.
Whether it's a detailer, whether it's a, you know, whoever it is, if they can kind of help me offer a different service, like, you know, mechanical work, let's say, I'm all for it, because, you know, as long as you're reliable and I can trust you, and vice versa, I'm like, why not we all kind of have a piece of the pie? So.
And again, it tightens up the relationship with everybody.
Yeah.
The customer wants to deal with one point of contact. They want one guy that they really like in you, and then, you know, 5 other guys can do work off of that, and everybody's happy as long as your vendors are providing a great service at, you know, at a competitive price. I mean, there's no reason that they wouldn't go with you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's better for the client too, because now it's like they only have to do like one-stop shop.
Sure.
So like this year we're going to offer shrink wrap.
Oh, good.
But we're also going to do, you know, like a wash and a prep before, so that way now we know next year when we open the boat, it's going to be somewhat clean.
Perfect.
Because there's little things that people don't understand, you know, with detailing and things like that to just help the longevity.
That's great. So I love the idea of franchising. That'll be great.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably have to come to you for some help, that's for sure.
We're in the process of franchising Wingman at the moment.
So I'll wait till you're done, and I'll see what pointers you can give me.
I'll tell you, I think I got more gray hairs.
Yeah.
Honestly, the good thing about your business is you have the off season. So I don't have an off season.
Yeah.
So trying to do this while still running our business,
it's crazy.
It's like
crazy.
And, you know, I have the trademark attorney sending me emails. Are we approved yet? Are we ready? Like, you know, I have the operations manual. Myself and Chelsea have sat through Zoom after Zoom to go over the operations manual and the FDD, and in the end, it's going to be great. It's just getting there. So I said to the franchise attorney, I said, I'll have answers for you by the weekend. Like, I knew I couldn't get to it yesterday. I knew today was going to be crazy. So I said, so tomorrow I'll just go through it and just get them the answers.
It's how it is, though.
It's hard. Yeah. But again, once you have the people, you know, we have a couple people that are interested already. So, like, you know, they're like asking me, and it's like, it's going to be great because, again, the processes and procedures we put in place are now going to be replicatable.
Yeah.
And again, I know when I started 15 years ago, I was selling the job, I was installing the job, I was writing up the invoices, I was taking the phone calls. It's very hard. It's very easy to fail in those first few years until you have, like you said, you have the processes in place, because you're trying to do everything and like you can't do anything.
Yeah, I think too that would be like the biggest, and like, listen, I'm 30 years old. I'm sure you have more experience, but I've seen too, you know, people older than me that don't have those systems and processes in place. And that was the biggest thing I realized last year is I don't need to be invoicing anymore. I don't need to be doing scheduling. So I've started to unload, you know, social media too.
I wish I did that earlier in my career. I remember I said to a friend of mine years ago, probably 12, 13 years ago. I was in the business 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, and I said, why would I let someone else pick up the phone? They need to talk to me. And I was like, and I was hell bent on it. Like, I said it with confidence, and he's looking at me like I was a little crazy. He had a very successful business, and he had 20 30 employees, whatever at the time. I was me, and he's looking at me like, what do you mean? And I said, they need to talk to me. They I remember even saying, your business is different than mine.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like, he was like, you got to learn for yourself. So like, he didn't tell me, but at the same time, he's probably like, this guy's nuts. But now I'm like, again, we have people that answer the phone. We have people that are account managers. We have people that call up when the credit card needs to be renewed.
Yep.
Like, I don't get involved in that. And, even sometimes a customer will text me and say, hey, what about this? And I'll say, listen, I'll have Nicole or Heather or Kevin reach back out to you and get you the files, so that I'm not digging into my computer trying to find something that I don't even. They're much more equipped to do the job than I am.
Especially for me too. Like, I know, like, I'm always in my car.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's the Jeep or the work truck, like, I always have a notebook with me. I have both phones, because one phone I just use for like pictures and stuff. So I'm always in my car. So it got to a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm making notes as I'm driving, or I've been pulling over. So I think I've started to buy back some time, and I did it last year where one of the guys, Aiden, who's been phenomenal for me. Young kid, been phenomenal, learned so quickly, does a great job, and I started to give him some responsibility, because I was the same way. I was like, these clients won't talk to anybody else but me. And I gave him a couple, and they were perfectly okay with it.
There's some clients that still like...
Yeah, there's always...
But like, if you could get rid of 80% of it to have somebody... And I would say to people, oh, Nicole can talk to you now, versus I'm not going to get to you till 5 o'clock tonight. And at 5 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be making those notes like you're talking about, and then I got to get it over. But the notes could be over by 1 o'clock, and the project could probably be done by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that has helped.
The biggest thing, too, I've seen is like I said, back to building relationships. I've built relationships with some of these clients where they just tell me where they want to go in, or, and I just kind of go to their house and do it. Or they literally will say, like, listen, I know you're busy. Like, if you get back to me in a day or two, that's fine. Just get back to me.
Sure.
So, it's all about building that trust, too. I think that's the biggest thing, is building that relationship.
The good thing is you have a 15-year head start on me.
Yeah.
So run with it. I mean, I think this is great. I think what you're doing is awesome. I'm proud of you. Again, I just met you, but we follow each other on social. But I think what you're doing is awesome. You have a lot of good insights that most 30-year-olds do not have. So
I appreciate it.
Run with that and use it to your advantage. And again, buy back your time. If you haven't read that book, read it. But like, there's so many things that I wish. Again, I have no harm in everything. For me is a building block. I always say, all right, I did this, and it's a building block for something that's next. But utilize the fact that you've figured out things a lot quicker than I have to your advantage, and get them done faster. Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing I would say to like other young entrepreneurs is, remember that you're young, and if you can make mistakes and fail, remember, like, you're not behind. Like, even myself, like, as you said it, you just said it right now, and I had goosebumps, and I'm like, I still have so much to go, so many years to go, and so many ways to grow. Like, I think we get caught up in we need it now. It's like, dude, you're not behind. If you're doing more than, if you have a business, you're a young entrepreneur, you're doing more than like 99% of people.
Totally. I totally agree with you. I started my own business. I was like 30, 31, thereabouts. And I worked for 6-7 years in corporate America, and then I jumped out on my own. And again, I was 30, 31. I had already bought a house. So I had living expenses, but I knew that if I didn't make it, I would just go back and get a corporate job. But like, you're at 30 now. You're 5 years in. You've made some mistakes. You've learned from those mistakes. You're already thinking about this and that.
And I'm probably going to keep making mistakes.
You're going to, and that's part of the game. And but you're also going to figure out other things that could help benefit the business. You think about franchising. That's great. You think, there's other products and services that you could probably add to your offering to extend your season, like the warehouse. Like, those are all awesome things. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it.
I appreciate it, Tom.
So as we wrap up today, let people know where they can find you on your social or your website or however you want to be contacted.
Yeah, so if they want to contact us, they can find us at New Life Detailing on Instagram, or go to www.newlifedetailing.com. Instagram is best. I usually always have my phone, and I'll get back to you probably within a half hour.
These young guys on Instagram, of course.
You know how it is.
Well, thanks for coming on today. This was great.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for all your insights, and I'm excited to hear about the future.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.